Jay here, straight for Paddock. This is the Paper Talk. As you can see, I'm live. I'm in my kitchen and I'm late. So apologies for being late. We've got all the latest Manchester United news. We're going to get into it here in not so sunny Salford. The weather outside is okay. Brian Casey's in the chat, says Jay likes to be fashionably late. Akash K says, yeah, Jay, looking after the beard. Oh, we've done that thing again. Oh, my camera's doing that weird little thing where it goes all sort of zoomed in. It's like become a little bit of a trait here, isn't it? I'm sorry about this. I don't know why it's doing it, and I don't like it. However, enough of that. Enough of the tradition of me making a bit of a mess of the camera and me going a little bit late. We will get into all the latest Manchester United news. Make sure, if you're not doing already, you are subscribing to the channel. We want to get now to 900,000 subscribers. We want to talk about Bryan Mbeumo because we know that over the weekend we had this story, didn't we? The news that the second bid had been rejected. But it doesn't look like the deal is dead. It looks like the deal is still going to go ahead. All the sort of latest in sort of reports are that Manchester United and Brentford are almost on the same page. It just feels as though, in terms of the overall fee, they're not that different. It's just the way it's going to be paid. United wanting to do more of it sort of staggered or part of it up front and then more in incentives and add-ons. Brentford wanting something closer to the 62.5 million Manchester United paid for Matheus Cunha and having that as an upfront sort of payment. So it's not too despairing. It's not like you go, oh, this is done. Or it isn't done, it isn't going to happen. Manchester United aren't going to get Bryan Mbeumo. Every one of us who got excited about the prospects of seeing him playing for Manchester United can now start sulking and moaning because it ain't going to happen. I don't feel like that is the case. It just feels like there's some sort of movement going on and some machinations behind the scenes as to when and how Manchester United can get this deal done. Now, Fabrizio Romano, he did a post about 21 hours ago where he said, breaking, Man United remaining active talks for Bryan Mbeumo, bid to be improved. Despite no agreement reached so far, Brentford, Man United keep talks ongoing, remaining confident with club-to-club negotiations to continue over final details for add-ons, fee structure, and more to follow. Mbeumo has been clear he wants Man United. Now, I was looking at who's liked this status, and there's one name that sort of popped up that I found interesting, and it was Matheus Cunha. So Matheus Cunha is like that. It looks like Matheus Cunha is excited at the prospects of playing alongside Bryan Mbeumo because that did feel like a more positive post. That did feel like a post that was saying, look, it wasn't one of those bid rejected, this isn't happening, he ain't going to come to Old Trafford, we should all be gutted. It looks like, look, this is going to happen. The bids come in. Brentford have rejected it, but not sort of rejected the idea of selling Bryan Mbeumo to Manchester United for around that fee. Get involved in the chat in the comments and let me know what you think. As we always do on a Sunday morning, I want to make this more of a conversation than me just reading out news stories and boring you all to death. I just want to know what you think about the Bryan Mbeumo deal. Do you think it's going to happen? What do you think about Matheus Cunha's reaction? If I'm Matheus Cunha, I'd be loving the idea of playing alongside Bryan Mbeumo. I think those two in the two number 10 roles works really well. I think that is probably one of the reasons. I think it works both ways. I think one of the reasons that Bryan Mbeumo is probably keen on a move to Manchester United because we have just finished 15th. But if you're saying to Bryan Mbeumo, look, we've got Matheus Cunha, we bought him, you're going to play alongside him, you know what he's about. Plus, we are Manchester United Football Club. Despite all our faults, we are still one of the biggest clubs in the world. It makes it a little bit more attractive, doesn't it? It does when you can see that United are sort of moving forward. And I feel like with this one now, we've got to the point where if United didn't get Mbeumo, that would be, I feel, embarrassing for Ineos. It wouldn't buy into this narrative that Ineos know what they're doing and they're moving the club forward. However, the flip side to it, because there's always a flip side, is can Manchester United afford to get our pants pulled down? Can we afford to spend upwards of 70 million quid on a player when the whole point of Ineos new ideas and new ethos was we weren't going to do those deals that we've done in the past, like the 70 million for Casemiro, the 70 odd million for Jadon Sancho, which I'll get to in a minute, the 70 odd million for Rasmus Højlund. It felt like Manchester United have been overpaying for players, and in many cases had overpaid to the point where now we're still having to sort of recover from those deals, if that's the right word. So I understand the feeling among Ineos that they don't want to get the pants pulled down. However, though, we should be getting this deal done, and it does feel like both clubs are almost there. It just feels like the varying reports that we're seeing are all kind of saying a similar thing in the sense that Manchester United and Brentford almost agree on the fee. We almost say, look, it is going to be around 62.5 million, 63 million or whatever. It's just how that fee is paid. Manchester United obviously wanting to pay so much up front and then the rest in add-ons. Brentford are like, nah, mate. You paid 62.5 million up front for Matheus Cunha or over 2 years. You can do that for us. And let's not forget, United did try this with Cunha. They tried to pay it over 5 years, I think. And there was a buyout clause. So they knew they had to pay 62.5 million. They said, let's do it over 5 years. And Wolves were like, no, we want it over 2 years. That's the clause. If you want him, you got to pay that. And United went fine, and they did that because we got him on deadline day, on the opening of deadline day. Sorry, not deadline day, the opening of the transfer window, the first day of the transfer window, we got him. So there wasn't any dramas there, and I'm hoping there's not going to be too many dramas. Good to see some usual suspects in the chat. Glenn F's there. Andrew says, we always get our pants pulled down when buying from an English club. I understand that. I want to hear what you guys think about how far United should go with this. Is there a limit where you go, that's enough now? No. Brentford are taking a mick. Do we wait? Because I think he's got 1 year left on his deal and another year as a sort of add-on. Not an add-on. What is it? Another year kicks in if Brentford decide to take him up on that and he's willing to sign it, I presume. So it's technically 2 years, which is why you're paying quite a bit for him. But it's only 1 year on his current contract. It's an option for another year. So do United say, right, well, we'll wait. We can wait 12 months or wait till January, maybe get him a little bit cheaper or the price we wanted to get him? Or do we go now? I feel we need to get him now. I feel we need him for not just the season, but pre-season. The talk was we wanted him in for July the 7th. You need to do that, man. You need to start moving this club forward. You need to get past the 15th place finish we had last season. And the way to do that is to bring in, not just go silly with transfers, but bring in some real quality. You've done that with Matheus Cunha. Now you need to do it with Bryan Mbeumo. We need to get this deal done so the manager can work with him. One of the biggest issues that Ruben Amorim had last season was he was working with players during the season. He came in obviously mid-season and it just didn't quite work out, did it? I'm not saying he's a bad manager or we shouldn't stick with him. I think we should. But it obviously hurt Manchester United, it hurt Ruben Amorim. The fact that Ruben Amorim didn't get a full pre-season with these players, he inherited him as the sort of the ship was already sinking almost. So I do want to see him get a full pre-season with at least 2 of his new signings. Hopefully there's going to be more. There was reports that Manchester United could be in for 3 or 4 more players during the window. Makes sense. I can't see United finishing 15th, buying 2 players and thinking, well, that's that sorted then. Let me know what you think. Marcus says this manager has to make top 4 next season, by the way, so he better get this deal done. Ollie McDowell says, how much would Eze cost? Eberici Eze, very popular player, very good player, very talented player. I don't think we can get him. I think Crystal Palace would want big money for him, and I don't think Manchester United can afford to buy 3 players on for relatively high transfer fees from the Premier League clubs. I just don't see it. 20 Legend says 65 million limit. If not, we move to Semenyo. I'm not as big a fan of Semenyo as I am of Bryan Mbeumo. I'm not going to lie to you, although I do think he's a good player. I just think Mbeumo's a lot better. Ollie McDowell also says, I've done this thing again. I don't know what is going on with this. I need to have a sort of word with myself with this camera. It's always doing these sort of shenanigans. It's only just started doing it recently as well, man. It's well known. There's a good question here. Why does it say no excuse on the thumbnail? I'm going to get into that. I don't think there are any excuses for Manchester United now. Cunha has a sort of liked a post, which isn't the be all and end all, but it's obviously that a lot of the players are looking at this and saying we need this deal done. Bryan Mbeumo wants to come to Manchester United. Everyone who talks about Manchester United, or everyone talks about this deal, says Bryan Mbeumo wants to come to Manchester United, right? So he wants to come to Manchester United. Brentford are willing to sell him. The fee isn't that astronomical. I know it's not pennies, but it's a doable fee. The clubs are kind of agreeing on terms of the fee. It's just the payment. There are no excuses. You cannot finish 15th and just go, we've got Cunha. We'll be all right. You need to make some signings. And there's a signing right there. A player who just scored 20 Premier League goals, wants to come to Manchester United. You can get him. The club are willing to sell him for pretty much the fee that you're willing to pay. Get it done. When are Ineos going to start earning their money? Because so far, I think they've done okay on certain respects. We've made some good signings. I'm not saying we haven't. Aiden Heaven, Chido, Lenny Yoro, Matthijs de Ligt, Nuzair Mazraoui. These are all good signings that have happened on Ineos's watch. I get all that. But now you need to show us how you can really earn your money, how you can move this club forward, because you've had 1 full season at Manchester United and we finished 15th. So it's not all been sunshine and rainbows since Ineos have come in. I understand the facts of the debt. I understand the mess the Glazers left us in, or leaving us in, because they're still not gone yet. I get all that. But there's no excuses for this deal for me. And I don't think we should be turning to other players. I think we should be getting this one done. That doesn't mean you get your pants pulled down. Doesn't mean you pay extortionate amount of money. And it doesn't feel as though Manchester United have to. It's not like Brentford are going, we want 90 million for him, or you can do one. That isn't happening. We were speaking, I think it was to Laura the other day, about the Harry Maguire deal. And he was saying on the Harry Maguire deal how Manchester United paid 80 million quid up front, all at once for Harry Maguire because we had it available. This isn't the case with the Bryan Mbeumo deal. It's not like Manchester United, I think, got to pay it or pay 80 million, certainly up front. I think we're looking at around 62.5 million. Maybe you get that staggered over a couple of years. We did it with Cunha. Even Cunha, although we had a buyout clause, was over 2 years. So maybe there's something in that. Maybe you go 60 million plus the rest in add-ons, achievable add-ons. Maybe that gets it done. But this is where you earn your money. Me or you could ring Brentford. Well, we couldn't. But me or you could get an easy deal done where we paid, over the odds, or you paid all the money at once. But we're not going to do that, obviously, because that's not our job. But this is where Ineos, who have all this expertise, who have all these people they've employed, who know what they're doing when it comes to transfer deals, can make these deals happen. You go, right, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to structure it. This is why everyone's happy. At the minute, we're just not moving forward. And I'm not worried because it does feel like this is going to happen, but it needs to happen because I feel if we were to walk away now, if this deal wasn't to go forward, and if for whatever reason Ineos were like, oh, we just can't do it, I know you're going to get a lot of briefing if that happens from Manchester United saying, oh, Brentford were playing hardball, Brentford wanted money we couldn't have, all the rest of it. Well, every journalist who's worth anything, every journalist you listen to, is kind of saying the same thing, that the fee isn't really that much of an issue. It's you're in and around the same sort of ballpark that the club want and the club are willing to pay. So the clubs are almost there. It just feels like it's a little bit of the minutiae that's not getting this deal done. Ollie McDowell says Cunha top signing. Malp says the Scousers and City are just too far away. Akash K says, yeah, I agree, Jay. How hard can it be, especially for best in class people? Marcus says we finished 15th. You get a grip. That's bottom 5. Exactly. 15th. It is. We need to fix up. And what worries me is when you're looking at it, we spoke about this the other day, and I think it was on Off the Bar. Other clubs are making big moves. They're getting further away from us. We need to make sure we get our house in order this summer. That doesn't mean getting your pants pulled down. The two aren't, it's not one and the same. You can have a good summer without getting your pants pulled down. There's an interesting thread here from United Muppeteers, which I saw this morning. I quite like it. It's talking about all the deals, giving a little bit of a thread on the latest deals. And I think I was been looking at various news articles doing the rounds, and I think this sort of sums it up quite nicely, the way that Muppeteers have gone about it. Done a thread on where we're up to with various deals. So they talk about Mbeumo. So second bid for United, second bid from Mbeumo, put United closer to deal. Discussions ongoing and add-ons and details, including agent fees, overall and base fees, still up for change. United fully intent and prepared for players' arrival. A new offer, hope to reach full agreement, expected fairly imminently. So it looks like they're saying it is imminently, and everyone I've checked, everyone I've looked at, all the leading journalists are saying similar things. Sword of the Evening says, nice kitchen, mate. Lots of lights. Thank you. Someone else saying 15th is bottom 6. Sorry, my math is terrible. Marcus says City are getting massive, by the way. They're never going to be massive, but I understand your point. Haaland and Pep have gotten what? Hang on a minute. I didn't fully read this. Haaland and Pep have gotten them fans. The nightmare is real now. City will always be City. They'll always be miles behind Manchester United off the pitch, just on the pitch where they're sort of leaving us in our wake. Just going back to this thread as well, which sums it up nicely from United Muppeteers, talking about Anthony. Club talks with Betis have been regular and active. We say some interesting proposals discussed as a Spanish club look for a creative solution, pushing forward for the move, or player pushing for the move, expected to move forward. That feels like the same one there. With Sancho, it says here, Napoli and Juve took a step forward. Well, Fenerbahce made an approach. There was reports this morning, I think I've seen it in the Mirror and one or two others, that maybe the Fenerbahce thing isn't going to happen. Maybe Sancho doesn't want to do that move. I get it, even though I'd like to see him move on. If he doesn't want to go to Turkey, okay, but he has to move on somewhere this summer. I'm worried about the idea of him just coming back to Manchester United. Steve M says, there's 2 months left the window. People need to calm down. Getting players early is important, but we have to wait. We wait. If we do have to wait, obviously we wait. It's pretty obvious. But don't want us to wait too long. I don't want us to wait too long. Looks like there could be something in Sancho and Napoli, maybe in Juve. That feels more likely than the Fenerbahce thing, which doesn't feel like it's going to happen. Sweaty Legend, this was Sancho, obviously. Sweaty Legend says Tyler Dibbling is another option. Remember when there was this rumor that Tyler Dibbling, or report that Southampton wanted, was it 100 million for Tyler Dibbling? And you're like, well, that's not going to happen, is it? Like, you're not going to pay 100 million for Tyler Dibbling. And I know, like, clubs try it, don't they? They'll try and, like, chance their arm and say, oh, like, let's put a massive price tag on him and see what happens. But that was obviously nonsense. Yeah, there's the few, going back to the Mbeumo one, a few stories doing the rounds. I think the Mirror are running the story on the fact that Cunha and Joshua Zirkzee like to post from Romano. I couldn't see the Zirkzee one. I don't know what his at is on the on Instagram, but I did see the Cunha one. Look, I said this earlier. If you're a player and you're looking at playing alongside Bryan Mbeumo, an attacking player, I'm guessing you'd be happy about that, especially if you're someone like Matheus Cunha, because it's not like he's going to take your place in the team. You're the new signing. You're the marquee signing so far for Manchester United. If he comes in, he's going to play alongside you. Talking about Paul Pogba, got Monaco in the chat as well. Akash K says, Jay, did you see Richard Rios last night? Another stellar performance from the Club World Cup. Richard Rios, this is the kid from Palmeiras, isn't it? We have been linked with him quite a lot over the last, over the last few weeks. This seems to have a little bit of momentum to it. I think there was an £85 million price tag, though, which obviously isn't going to happen. Manchester United are not going to spend 85 million quid on a midfielder who's never played in the Premier League. I just don't see that happening. However, one to keep an eye on. I know I say this a lot, but it is. Brian Casey says any signing after Mbeumo is going to depend on sales, and it's going to be extremely difficult to move Sancho and Rashford on. Don't know what is happening with Marcus Rashford. There was talk that maybe he could be going to Barcelona, but it feels more player-driven than Barcelona-driven, if that makes sense. It does feel like he really wants that move. He's trying to push for that move. Maybe there could be something in a loan deal, which is always, I say it's the latest. That's what's been the sort of the talk of that move for the last sort of week or so. Marcus says City and Liverpool going for the title while we are rubbish, worst 8 years of our lives. It is horrible in it every year when City and Liverpool are thereabouts, or you know, City and Arsenal or Liverpool and Arsenal. It doesn't make it any easier. And I'm sick of hoping that, you know, the lesser of two evils win the title. Manchester United need to fix up. We need to get back in that conversation. Isn't going to happen next season. I don't even think even the most deluded of us can believe that. But we can at least start making moves towards that with some good signings. Just going back to this Muppeteers thread, let's see what else is on it. Yeah, Rashford wants to go to Barca. Højlund, talk about Højlund. Interest from Inter remains for now. United want a deal they can count immediately for squad costs. For squad costs, wages not a significant saving. Also on Gyökeres, still interest there. Obviously, he wanted to go to Arsenal. They're still in for Benjamin Sesko, I think. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Gyökeres. I bumped into a few people. I was at a do last night, and people kept chatting to me about Gyökeres. What do you think is going to happen with Gyökeres? And I told them all, I'm not ITK. I say that to all you lot. You know it better than anyone. But if he doesn't move to Arsenal, which it doesn't look like he's going to, he's fell out with Sporting. I keep saying this. There could be something in that. If United can get some players out the door, and it might be a deal late in the window on that one. Oh, Santa Notch is here as well. Good to see him in the chat. If you just joined us, Santa, or Notch. I call him Santa. We're talking about Bryan Mbeumo, talking about the fact that Manchester United, as of yet, cannot get that deal over the line, but it does feel like it's going to happen, and one or two others as well. Obviously, other than Bryan Mbeumo, it looks like we need to sell to buy Jadon Sancho, Marcus Rashford on massive money. Doesn't look like there's much happening with either of those two players. Anthony Terrell betters could be something happening there soon, although unfortunately for us, if it does, he isn't going to bring in the type of money that maybe Marcus Rashford could. But it's a sale, and that's what we need right now. Then, of course, you've got Alejandro Garnacho. The latest reports indicate that he wants to go to the Premier League. Chelsea would be an obvious one because Chelsea love buying players. Maybe he could go to Stamford Bridge. I wouldn't be that much against that idea. It's not going to be easy seeing him playing for another Premier League club, but if it means that we get some decent money for him and we can reinvest that money elsewhere in the team and the squad, then maybe that is the best move for all concerned. Let me know what you think. Brian Casey says, I think Højlund can benefit from Cunha and Mbeumo. Two players that create and not looking to shoot at every opportunity. I was talking about this the other day. Me and Joe had a chat. I thought even Xerxes might work alongside Bryan Mbeumo and Matheus Cunha, because I think if those two get goals and he can sort of link up with them well, which I think his link up play is quite good, maybe that works as front three. But who knows, Rasmus Højlund, he could maybe do the business as well. Glenn F says, Top Man Jay, thank you. Twitter Legend says, Chelsea's an effing joke. They are a bit, aren't they? Fozzie says, do we know if we had a good sell-on clause with Elanga? I think we do have a sell-on clause. I don't know how good it is, because I think Newcastle trying to get him again. They've been in for him for a little while, and they're in for a few players. I think Newcastle, we'll have to wait and see what happens with that one with them. I think there was like a triple swoop. Was it Elanga, Trafford, and someone else whose name escapes me? 40% actually, Brian Casey's saying. James McGrogan says, Sancho is not going to leave. He's come this far with his contract. Why would he do United a favour and leave when he ain't got to get close to this wage elsewhere else? He's not doing us a favour. He's doing himself a favour. A year's a long time in football. Just sitting around doing now, or sitting in the resis for a year. Yes, he might get more money when he moves on in terms of his wages, because he could get a big sign-on fee because it's a free transfer. But I just think he's wasting his career, man. Sam Jaber says, hear me out. Possible scenario, loan mania. Rashi and Sancho go on loan, and we get a striker on loan. Stranger things have happened. Abhishek Roy Chowdhury says, Jay, do you think United will submit a new one worth 65 million euros for Mbeumo? Please answer this once. I think we have 65 million euros. I think is kind of what United have been doing. I think we need to get to 62 million pounds, I think. And I think it's got to be more upfront than staggered. Andrew Haldane says, Jay, Chelsea signing Gittins, they won't sign Garnacho now. That makes sense, but it's Chelsea, so you never know. Like, they just buy loads of players, don't they? They do it all the time, where it's like they'll get Casado and Lamina, and they'll get Palmer, and then they'll go out and they'll buy, I don't know, Mudryk or whatever. It's just, I know those two weren't at the same time, but you know what I mean? They just go out, don't they? Keep somehow making these signings, and somehow it's all PSR sustainable. I just don't really get it. But if it gets Garnacho to Stamford Bridge and we get some money in and we reinvest it, then more power to them. I'm going to leave it there. Make sure you're hitting like, share, and subscribe. I'm going to be back tomorrow morning outside Old Trafford, as usual. Thanks to everyone who got involved in the chat. A good Sunday morning chat, a little bit earlier today because I've got stuff to do today. Spending some family time. Make sure you are too. So, yeah, if you're not doing so already, go and check out the videos. Stephen Howson with his transfer review. Me and Joe chatting about our potential front three, all that good stuff. Back in the morning. See you outside Old Trafford. I'm Jay Motty. This has been a Paper Talk. It's looking pretty mild outside in not so sunny Salford. Thanks for watching.